I come to bear witness that there is no other God but Jehovah, and that Jesus Christ is his only Son, a prophet and Savior of the world. That there is no other name whereby men shall be saved but by and through the name of Jesus Christ. And at the name of Jesus, every knee shall bow, every tongue shall confess that Jesus Christ, the only Son of the most sovereign, omnipotent God, is Lord. Grace and mercy to the world and to my kingdom, brothers and sisters. Peace be unto you, and God be glorified. As we continue in the second of this series, entitled The Black African Diaspora Speak, we gave you the first, and that was the Table of Nations. And we reminded you that you not only have never been a minority, but you should never address yourself or speak to that term when someone addresses you as a minority. You have been in the majority status from the time of Noah and his 3 sons. We told you that Noah had 3 sons. One was Shem, Ham, and Japheth. We reminded you that Japheth had 14 nations. We told you that Shem had 26 nations and that Ham had 30 nations. And within those nations, Ham represents the Negroid, and the Negroid represent black people. Japheth represent the Caucasoid represent white people. And Shem represent the Mongoloid, and the Mongoloid are Asiatic type of Jewish people. So we wanted to remind you that as black people, we're not a minority, never have been a minority. And we want you to carry that and feel good about that and know that you came from some great roots from the continent of Al-Kabulan, better known to those of you today as Africa. Well, today we're going to do the second of this series. And if you have your Bibles, go away with me to the book of 2 Chronicles, chapter 7, reading verse 14. 2 Chronicles, chapter 7, reading verse 14. And the word of God reads, and it says, "If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray, and seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven, and will forgive their sins, and will heal their land." And this is what God was telling his people 2 to maybe 4,000 years ago, and I believe the same cry is for us today. Our issue is that we just don't want to obey God. And in the process of not obeying God, we have trouble on every side. Go in your Bibles to the book of Second Corinthians, and we'll be reading from chapter 4. We'll be reading verses 8 through 9. The book of 2 Corinthians, chapter 4, reading verses 8 through 9. And it simply says, "We are troubled on every side, yet not distressed. We are perplexed, but not in despair. Persecuted, but not forsaken. Cast down, but not destroyed." As black people, that verses are very fitting for us as a people, because we have not only been through a lot, but we are still going through a lot. Therefore, my text this evening is the state of blacks worldwide. The state of blacks worldwide. Now, what does that mean to say the states of blacks worldwide? We really don't get much conversation about that during the year, because most of us are trying to do our best to stay afloat with our daily lives. But in this sermon this evening, The State of Blacks Worldwide, we're going to give you somewhat of a statistical report outing as far as measuring black suffering worldwide, as well as understanding why these things are happening to us. And I believe we're good as long as we don't let them happen in us. You see, I believe Black History Month, in its purest sense, should be for us as black people to give a statistical report outing of what blacks have done all year to empower other black people. Not only are we to celebrate centuries of our past suffering, but yet thanking God for his grace and mercy toward us that we are still here. But even more to celebrate what we are doing to help one another right now in spite of all of the worldwide hatred towards us. You see, if you are born black in this world, the world have been poisoned to hate you. But still, we rise. We rise in helping one another to start businesses. We rise when we have the Kingdom Spectrum or the Kingdom Black Business Conference here at this church, and we rise when we go out and support other black businesses. I really hope that you're doing that. We rise when we think black, speak black, support black, buy black, and do everything black until the world come to take notice that we're really here. You see, there's a new thing going on now where black folks are not talked about as much. We hear the phrase Hispanic, Latinos, we hear Asians, and they may throw black somewhere down in the third or fourth sentence as though to say, well, you're here, but you're invisible to us. And what I find to be very strange today is that when black folks speak up, everybody gets mad. If you go down to Tulsa, Oklahoma, or you go to those places where you had Black Wall Street, when all things was equal, blacks had all kinds of movie theaters, all kinds of banks. They had bus lines. When I was growing up in Jackson, Mississippi, as a young man, grocery stores, black-owned, everything was black. And in Black Wall Street, the black people was doing well there until some white people got mad and jealous because the black dollar rotated in the black community for over, I believe it was a couple of years. It never left the community. And as a result, a young lady went and cried rape, and they came and bombed the city. They bombed the city 12 hours in succession from the air. They was running in and raiding black stores, going in and tearing up black homes, taking all of the stuff that was black and took it to their community. So what I've learned over the years is that when blacks decide to come together, white people still get mad. When the move was to get blacks to put their money into black banks, there was the Klan members and the white Nazis out there protesting and boycotting that. When the move was to help blacks to move forward in any way, there's always been pushback. And what's even more amazing to me is that they want us to accept our position, and when we try to rise, they try to make us feel bad about trying to rise. And I'm here tonight to tell you it's time to rise, and you shouldn't feel bad about wanting to do something and help your community and stand up in your community. And you should not allow yourself to fall for the fear that some white people, especially these Klan members and white nationalists and Nazis. They want to throw fear on you so that you remain as a little group of people with a whole lot of money where no one is going to help. It's critical for us to understand that the world, and if you don't believe me, fact about it, you know how I tell you, look it up for yourself. The world still hates black folks. And they're hating black folks more now than they did in the 50s, the 30s, and the 40s, because they can see some of us are beginning to rise. Some of us are beginning to get our education. Some of us are finding out who we really are. Some of us have come to understand that if we would just aggregate with one another, we really wouldn't have to be bothered with all the hate that's in the world. Our issue as black people is that we love everybody, but we just can't get along with each other. And as a result of that, the world takes advantage of it. You see, I agree with Dr. Claude Anderson when he said black people have not moved 1 inch since slavery of 1865. There was over 300,000 blacks were made free who had 1/2 of 1% of the nation's wealth. 150, close to 200 years later, blacks are still have 1/2 of 1% of the nation's wealth. He went on to say that 67 to 69% of all blacks are working in some level of state government. He continued to say 26 to 27% are working in white corporations, and only 2% of blacks own their own business. You see, we are good at loving everybody else, but we have been pausing to love ourselves. Some of us have just settled down and just said, this is it. Nothing's going to change. Some of us have settled down and said, well, I've tried and nothing worked. Just settle down. What if the slaves that hit the first state of Virginia had said, you know what, we're just going to die. We're not going to fight anymore. You wouldn't be here. You see, when you quit on your people, you quit on your children and your grandchildren and their children and their children. As blacks, we should never quit. We should always be finding ways to continue the struggle. And that struggle is mainly, as far as us, the struggle for us is showing black love to one another. And until we can do that, we will always be the world's laughingstock. They will find ways to laugh at us, find ways to take that $1.5 trillion that we make a year, and they'll find ways to use that money to help us destroy ourselves. Well, how do they do that? They make sure you got cigarettes on every corner. They make sure you got liquor stores on every corner. They make sure that guns are planted in your neighborhood. They make sure that drugs are brought from Peru, Bolivia, Mexico, and all over the world to your neighborhoods. They make sure that you get so used to being down until you just lay down and refuse to stand. They make sure that there is no help for you. Most immigrants that come to America can go to different places in the government and get grants and start their own business. They can do startups. And you've been in America for the last how many years, and they won't give you anything. The Mexicans come across the border and they put in their citizenship and they can go get grants. They can go get business loans. But you've been here all this time, you barely can find a job. You see, you're thinking, as blacks, you're thinking that this is just the way it is. I got to go to school, and if I go to school and get a college degree, I'm going to get a job. I got to go to school, and once I get my degrees and get all my certificates, they're going to hire me. Well, you see, I'm kind of like Marcus Mosiah Garvey. And Garvey said that you don't ask for your place. You don't beg for your place. You make and take your place. And we've been asking the white men, and when I say this, I'm not saying all whites. So if you have a critical ear or understanding ear, you would know that's what I mean. But the majority, those that are in power, those that are running the systematic system of white supremacy, have set it all up so that even when you move forward, you are still 1,000 steps behind. So what I want you to understand as we move forward in this text, yeah, we're trouble on every side, but Chronicles says, my people who are called by my name will humble themselves. See, as black folks, we got to first learn to be humble and submit ourselves to God. And never think that God has left you because he's been with you through all of this. We're the only group of people where we know that we needed God and he was with us for 400 years. Now that's the number that the state give us, that the government give us. They don't tell you about 1492. They don't go back before 1492, the 1400s when the Folsom was here, before the Asians showed up and created babies and they called them Native American. They don't tell you that as black people we went around the world 5, 6, maybe 10 times before Columbus found, or so-called found, this place. They don't tell you the history. What they do is give you whitewash history so you can believe that whites are superior to blacks. And in that, it is systematically designed so that you feel that you can't get nothing done unless you go to the white man. And what he's learned to do is to manipulate you, pat you on the head, give you a couple bananas, and tell you it's going to be all right. And you're going off and you get mad at your brothers and sisters because they're not supporting you, not knowing that that's all by design. See, the system is by design. This is not an accident nor a coincidence, but it's a demonic design to keep us as black people forever behind. Dr. Claude went on to say, 3 things a person can do. There are only 3 things a person can do in a society. Number 1, he said, work a job or start a business. You're going to either work a job or start a business. Number 2, receive public assistance such as welfare and food stamps. So if you don't want to work, you're going to receive public assistance, welfare and food stamps. Then he said the 3rd one, a person will then or either move into or commit crime and go to jail or prison. Jail and prison is the new modern day slavery. So whenever you go to jail or you go to prison, that means you're going to a place where I used to work in the Department of Corrections, you may get 8 cents a day. You know, back in the day, you may get 8 cents a day, and if you was fortunate, you may get 16 cents a day. And your monthly pay may be close to $16. And you're locked up in a cell, talking about how tough you are, not knowing that you're participating in the new modern-day slavery, the new prison industrial complex. You see, our struggle is different, black people. Our struggle is different. Our struggle is not like the Italians. Our struggle is not like the Irish. Our struggle is not like the Jews. Our struggle is not like the Mexicans or Hispanic. Our struggle is not like theirs, because we didn't migrate to America. We didn't get on boats and voluntarily come here. We're called having forced migration. they made us come here by the pointing of guns and using whips. You are the only non-immigrant in America. As blacks, you are the non-immigrant. Everything that everybody else is getting was solely for you. The Constitution was designed through affirmative action. As affirmative action came, it was designed to put you at the same status of the white man. But we get happy because we want to integrate with everybody else, and while you're integrating with everybody else, they're taking all of the stuff that should have been to you. And as a result of that, we're now in America and some places throughout the world, depending on the continent, we have shifted to number 5. You have whites, Hispanics, Asians, and other groups, and we're about number 5, quickly moving to number 6, because we have not learned how to play this game. One thing that I know, that whenever we're on equal footing, black people always rise. I remember Brother Jesse said it this way. He said, when the playing fields are equal. Brother Reverend Jesse Jackson, he said, when the playing fields are equal, black people always go to the top. If there's nothing to block us, we always rise to the top. And he used football. He said, when the playing field are equal, you take the best person on the field. They normally get the best positions. And when they get the best things, they normally rise to the top. He said, you can look at any sports. And most of your sports, blacks rise to the top. They become first rounders. Everything we do in that particular arena, without any inflections or discrimination, we rise. But since we're in this America that's designed for us not to rise, we struggle. And when we struggle, all of our people struggle. And this struggle that we're having is worldwide. We're in a worldwide struggle. And some of us, because we got a cup of coffee and some donuts, some of us just don't care. And what whites love to do, not all, but with some that are in power, they love to take a token Negro and put him out front and say, you can rise up if you just act like him. You can do good if you just follow his pattern. And he go off and thinking that he's somebody, don't go back to his community. And he find himself in a weakened conundrum, because not only is he not truly accepted by whites and other groups, now he's not accepted by his own. And as a result of that, his mouth becomes mute, because he can't talk to you, because he haven't been through anything. We should never, ever let whites select our leaders. We should never, ever let whites tell us how we're supposed to raise our children. We should never, ever let any group tell us how to love one another, because no one loves. I was telling a young man that today. No one loves like black people. We done been to hell and back, and we still love everybody that took us there. We've been through a lot, but yet we're still loving people. We're the ones that want to have diversity. We're the ones that want to have race relations. We're the ones that want to get along, and we're the ones, but it seems like it's very rare for that same love to be given back to us. So let us look at some statistical things here. You see, slaves were sold to the top 10 countries. So when we say diaspora, we're not just talking about America. The diaspora simply means any place other than the indigenous land of which we came from, and that is Al-Kabulan, better known to you as Africa. Top 10 countries where slaves were sold. Number one, India received 184 million slaves. Arabia received 28 million slaves. China received 3.39 million slaves. America received 2,100,600 million slaves. Pakistan received 2.13 million slaves. Bangladesh received 1.53 million slaves. Uzbekistan received 1.24 million slaves. North Korea received 1.1 million slaves. Russia received 1.01 million slaves. Indonesia received 100,000 slaves. These are places where people receive slaves. And let me give you some more. The highest population of black people outside of Africa. You want to know where your brothers and sisters are? They're all over the world. So when we say what's the state of blacks in the world, we're talking about worldwide suffering. And I'm going to give you some clear suffering that our people are going through. As blacks, you can no longer think of our suffering just in America. As blacks, you can no longer think of our suffering just, like I said, in America and a few other places. Our suffering, black suffering, is worldwide. You are hated all over the world. And the person that caused the world to hate you are white racist supremacists, posing as Christian, posing as Catholics, posing as all of those things, using those things as ways to get the world to hate us. And the reason why they want the world to hate black folks is because when the world know who we are, and as they're learning, they're understanding who we are, they will come to recognize us as the people that we were thousands upon thousands of years ago. If you ever see the Pope, ask the Pope why he have to sneak and go in the closet and worship a black Madonna. Looking at a black baby, Jesus, worshiping him, but why won't the Pope bring the black Madonna out and said, we believe that that Madonna was black? All of your religion know that black people was first man, first woman, first family, first nation, and first builders of ancient world civilization. You go to Russia, they have a black Madonna. You go to most of your European nations, they're running around with all of this information about black people. And they have been hiding it from you. Because when you come to understand who you are, you will rise. See, they say in psychology and in biology that if you strip a man or woman of his identity, if you strip him of his identity, that man or the woman will begin to lose the biology of who they are. They'll begin to lose the structural biology of who they are, the DNA of who they are. But then they go on and say that if you teach them who they are, the brain has a way of formulating who they are, and they begin to gravitate to who they are based upon the knowledge that they receive. So the more knowledge you receive about yourself, your brain will begin to do some things in you to cause you to recognize that you are not who people say you are, but you're what God says you are. And this is why it is so important for white people and other groups to keep knowledge from you. This is why it's important that they didn't want you to read a book. This is why it's important they didn't want you to know your history. This is why it's important they want to keep all of your background, all of the knowledge, all of the stuff that you have done and your forefathers have done. They want to keep that from you, because as long as that's from you, then you have been brainwashed. And as long as you're brainwashed, you will never come to understand who you really are. You will function as a victim. You will live as a victim. You will walk as a victim. You will talk as a victim. It's like somebody adopting you but don't want to let you know who your real parents are. Someone adopting you and don't want to let you know where you really came from. You see, the game has been played on us as black people. It's been played at a high level. And some of us are still thinking that it's okay. No, it's not okay. The more you learn about yourself, the more elevation you should be. Now, see, even during this month, white people think they're doing black people a favor by calling out certain things on TV. They're calling out Martin Luther King. They're calling out, Harriet Tubman. They're calling out different things, and they're accusing their guilt. They're accusing their guilt. They're making themselves feel good because they're on TV and they're saying, well, we need a note. This black person did that. That black person did that. But why don't they do that all year long? Why won't they do it all year long? No, they're not going to do it all year long, because they're going to give you some cookies and donuts and some ice cream for the month of February, and after February, it's going to be business as usual. And as blacks, it's important for us to educate ourselves and educate our children. We can't wait on a white man or any other man to educate us. We have to be determined that we're going to tell our kids about Imhotep. We're going to tell them about Mansa Musa. We're going to tell them about Cleopatra. Tell them about King Hannibal, Makeda, Queen of Sheba. We're going to tell them about King Shaka Zulu and many, many others that God has given us reference point to know that we are somebody. As long as you fall for the lie, because that's what it is. As long as you fall for the lie, then you're just going to be a good old slave, 21st century slave. Be a just good slave. You go to school, shh, be quiet. They may hear you. See, you done lost your mind if you're afraid that white people going to get mad when you say something that's about them, that keeping you from being who you need to be. See, that's how they get you. See, if they can't beat you, they're going to join you. And they're going to take you in a whole nother direction. And as blacks, we can't go in another direction. We're already at the bottom. All we can do is rise. Can somebody say it's time to rise? So you got to understand that. It's called self-love. So the highest population of blacks outside of Africa, Brazil, 80 million. 80 million. Haiti, 9 million. And some say it's getting higher. Dominican Republic, 7,800,000. France, 5 million. Colombia, 4,800,000. Jamaica, 2,900,000. Venezuela, 2,600,000. United Kingdom, 1,900,000. Trinidad Tobago, 1,200,000. You see, when they came to get slaves, they took them all over the world. And when the Europeans, the Caucasoids, when they finally came out of all of these civil wars that they had, they was killing each other. Our white brothers was murdering each other. And when they came out of, many that came out of caves, they didn't have a script, meaning that they had no language to write. Fact about it, Rome didn't have a script. A script means a language that you can write, like hieroglyphics. Hieroglyphics is the script. They had no script. So they got scripts from Africa. They got scripts from Greek. So when they came out and they went all over the world, they finally started to migrate all over the world. Who did they see? Black people. Everywhere they went, we was all over the world. Every continent, we was already there. And not there, but we was there for hundreds of years there. So what happens? We didn't get into race until the 1400s, following the 31 dynasties that ended around 1295. That's when we start to move into colorism. And in moving into colorism, Pope Innocent, Catholic faith. When the navigator, Sir John Hawkins Jr., had just got through making a trip coming through the continent of Africa and on the Atlantic, Pope Innocent says when he brought 14 blacks back from his trip, he brought them and he gave them to Pope Innocent as a gift. And when he gave them to Pope Innocent as a gift, the Pope was using these black people as slaves. And while using these black people as slaves, he made a decree. Now, this is a Catholic faith. He said the only group of people that ever need to be used as slaves are black people. And the question was, why? He said, because they're the hardest working people, and if you're going to enslave any group, you need to enslave black people. From that position, the Muslim faith, Islam, was the first group of people to ever enslave black people. Islam. So to some of my black Muslim brothers that are hearing this CD, I know you believe in Allah, I know you believe in Islam, but as Islam was the first to enslave your people. But see, if we don't know that, then we remain ignorant or choose to remain ignorant. Hear me now. The Catholic faith and Christianity and Islam, Muslim, are the primary religion along with Protestants and Methodists and Presbyterians. All of these were the ones that was enslaving black folks, and they did it through religion. So everywhere you go, you see Catholics all over the world. And while being all over the world, they're looking for ways to push white supremacy. And while pushing white supremacy, they don't pass out Bibles with black Jesus or the black Madonna. You would think if the Pope has a black Madonna and a black baby Jesus in the back room where he worshiped, you would think that he would be one of the main ones that will go against white supremacy. But no, white supremacy is worldwide. White supremacy is in the majority place of most all religion, from Christianity to Catholicism to Islam to any other religion you can think of. White supremacy is there. Why? To keep black folks suppressed. When we are suppressed, the world does what they want to with us all over the world. And I want to get you to get a greater understanding of this. Whites, with their so-called systematic program of white supremacy, have poisoned and trained the world to hate black people worldwide for centuries. You say, well, is that true? Keep a living. In fact, you ain't got to keep a living, just do a little research. You're hated all over the world until the world meets you. Remember that. When the world meets you, they are mesmerized by you. When the world meets you and see you and talk to you, they're mesmerized by you because they know that white supremacy is a lie. And the white man, along with others, want us to think that no one loves us. The propaganda out there about us is that we're criminals, and I'm going to give you some information in a minute. We're criminals, we're liars, all we want to do is do drugs. They don't show how drugs and all this stuff gets into our community. The world, the white man, and all other groups that go along with white supremacy have told the world that black folks are useless. And we have some black preachers and black politicians always want the white man to come to their churches and come to their groups. And every 2 to 4 years, he promised them heaven, but he gives them a one-way ticket straight to hell. And for some reason, these black politicians and black pastors can't see it. Instead of voting for him, ask him what he's going to do. But what do? We vote. You know, we go out and do our thing, and 50 years go by, and nothing has changed in your community. Fact about it, it's gotten worse. Answer this question, if you please. How do we get AK-47s and MAC-10s and Uzi automatics, 9mm, AK-47s and 22s and Glocks down in East St. Louis, and not only East St. Louis, but in south side of Chicago, Watts in New York, California, Jackson, Mississippi, Kenosha, Wisconsin, Detroit, Michigan? How do we get all these guns that just happen to make it to those inner cities? I've never seen a gun store owned by a black person in this area. I just want to put something on your mind. I've never seen a gun store owned by black people in this. Matter of fact, from Mississippi all the way to Chicago, I've never known blacks to own a gun store. Hear me now. In the whole continent of Al-Kabulan, Africa, from what I was recently discovered, they have no guns. Black folks don't make guns. So how are they getting all of those guns into those countries? It's by design. They send them over shiploads. Make sure they have enough ammunition. They make sure they give them to people that they know are going to do their dirty work. Black people have guns all over the world, but we make none. We have drugs all over our cities. In every major cities, on the block, on the corner, in the projects, in the neighborhood, we got drugs everywhere. But they don't come from Chicago. You know, they come from Peru and Bolivia and Mexico and all of that. We have special ops that are selling guns in the back, in the dark, in the corner. We have people that are dropping off tons and tons of cocaine and heroin and opioids and methamphetamine. They're dropping them off in cities with certain people paying for them and distributing them to our communities. And when they go to our communities, we're killing each other, drugging each other, and filling our nation's prisons. We need to open up our eyes and see what's really being played on us. But we got some of us just saying, hey, you know, I just want a job. And when you get a job, you wonder why you're being carjacked and somebody robbing you. Is because the game has been brought to your own community. And yet we got these dizzy politicians that's going for the ride because they would rather say, at least I'm trying to do something, but you're afraid to tell the people they got to do more because they're the ones that are bringing drugs and guns into our communities. Think about it. In St. Louis right now, you can go anywhere and buy a gun. Anywhere. you can get what you want. And they love to sell them to young black males from the ages of 8 all the way up to 25. Because they already know what you're going to do. You're going to try to be Big Papa, shot caller. You're going to try to slang, hang, and bang. You know, you're going to do a little carjacking. You're going to go in and steal some cell phones, walk into a place and grab a whole stats. So dumb that you don't know that they're tracking you with the phones. So it's like putting a bright orange in a jar so the monkey can put his hand in. And since the monkey wants the orange so bad, he won't let go of the orange and put his hand out. So he tried to climb up the tree, but he can't get nowhere because he's holding on to what is catching him. The same is true in our communities. We're holding on to stuff that's sending us to prison. We're holding on to stuff that's destroying our lives. We're holding on to stuff that's keeping us from being what God needs for us to be. Is that black suffering? You say, well, Pastor, is it anywhere else? It's worldwide. Our suffering is worldwide. The world hates the skin that black people live in, but want the swag that we have. The world loves our music. It ain't cool until we wear it. There is no sound until we sing it. There ain't no bass line until we playing it. There is no game unless we in it. There is no victory unless we competing for it. Nothing works in the world. Hear me, church. Nothing works in the world without us. Nothing works in the world without us. And the world knows it. Who are your greatest poet? It's somebody black. Who are your greatest psalmist? Somebody black. Who are the person that have done so many creative things? Somebody black. The world needs us, but we need each other. Until we can learn to stand and love each other, the world will always dominate us. They hate us because they want us to remain where we at. It's like you know in somebody's potential and you're afraid that they're going to do better than you. So you do things to keep them from knowing their own potential. You know that she's a scholar, but you want to turn her out into a prostitute. You know that she got a good mind, but you want her to think she's stupid. That's how the world deals with us. But we have to learn to deal with ourselves much better. As blacks, we've always had the dominant gene. Whites have always had the recessive gene. Whites, many times, do not want to accept the fact that they have a recessive gene and that anything a black man touches will be black. I don't care what he touches. I don't care what woman he's with, the baby will be genetically black. Dominant gene. Whites are also dying all over the world. Write that down. If you don't believe me, look it up. That's what I said. White people are dying all over the world. 7 continents, they're dying. I can't explain it. They can't explain it. All they know is that some parts of the world are becoming a ghost town because not too many whites are living. Many are dying. In the United States, there are 26 states in the United States where whites are dying off and they're not reproducing themselves. The birth rate of most whites all over the world is 1.8. In order to sustain a population, you need at least 2.5. And they cannot sustain the population, therefore, many are dying off. Some psychologists and psychoanalysts are saying they're dying off because of, it's called death by despair. So when you hear of the immigration policy, when you hear Donald Trump talking about build a wall, when you hear looking out for the borders, when you hear all of these things, just know it's only for one thing. Their birth rate are low and their numbers are low, and if any other black and brown come into America, white people will be not in existence by year 2040. You ain't got to believe me, look it up for yourself. This is the conundrum that's going on all over the world. Not just in the United States of America. It's going on all over the world. Vengeance is mine, says the Lord, I will repay. It's going on all over the world where many are dying off. So when you hear this fight about immigration, you hear this fight about, well, you know, we got to block the borders. We can't let no groups come in. They are fighting for their literal survival. They're on borderline of extinction, and they know it. And if you're watching the news, you need to listen with a different ear. If you're listening with an objective ear, they are telling you every day, we cannot let any more come into this country. And why is that? Because their white women are marrying black and brown. And if they're marrying black and brown, they are basically exterminating themselves. Do you hear that on Fox? They're not going to tell you that. And most of us don't know that because we don't read. You know, they said years ago, if you want to hide anything from a black man, put it in a book. He ain't going to read it, too lazy to read. He may read one paragraph and then he tired, he sleepy. I ain't got time to read all this. They're telling you every day the reason why the hate level is so high in America. The reason why white Nazis are angry. The reason why they want to send black people back to Africa. They want Asians to go back to China, and they want every group to go back, and they want to bring in more from Russia. You wonder why Putin and Trump are getting along is because they're trying to bring more Russians to America, like they're trying to do from Norway, they're trying to do from Europe, they're trying to do from Germany. They're trying to increase their numbers, white marrying whites. Whites marrying whites, having white babies. That's what the problem is. Their birth rate is low. So you stop crying for Hispanics and Mexicans and all that. They're going to be just fine. The reason why he don't want them here is because he knows that some white women just can't keep their hands off black and brown men. And as a result, they're producing mulatto babies, and we know a mulatto baby is a black baby. You can have fine curly hair, but your baby gonna have some steel wool when you're through with it. You can't change it. It's the dominant gene. And I'm so glad God loved me so much until he gave me a whole lot of melanin. I didn't like it years ago because I didn't know what it was. But I'm a melanated brother. And you're melanated people. And you have the dominant gene. And you should never let no one make you feel bad about that, because they wish they had the dominant gene. Oh, you don't believe me? There's a group of scientists right now. They have a study every 3 years. Every 3 years, 1, 2, 3 years. And the only thing they study is melanin. But they never, ever invite black scientists to it. They're trying to steal your melanin. They're trying to get you to be white as they become black. Because when they become black, then they can fit right in with the history that they stole from you. And since you want to be white so bad, putting bleach all on your face, you're trying to be like the white man, want to look like the white man, dress like the white man, talk like the white man. So right now they're studying melanin to make sure you become white and they become black and take all your history and say, we was first man, first woman, first family, first nation, first builders of ancient world civilization. Because you Negroes don't know what you have. And when you don't know what you have, anybody can come and take it from you. Research it. They're studying melanin right now every 3 years. Scientists from Germany, Europe, all over, the white scientists getting together. They're trying to stop the decline of their death rate. Did you not know that, get you out of here. Did you not know that Haitians are a dominant group over in Haiti? United Kingdom, we have United Kingdom, Afro-France, Afro-Italy, Afro-Latin. And here's something that'll blow your mind. They don't want to be black. Afro-Chinese don't want to be black. You have Chinese right now. They look at you as monkeys and chimpanzees. They have a museum in China. Mr. Hopgood and I viewed it. They have a museum in China where they put on exhibition called This is Africa. They have monkeys with the face right beside a man. And not only monkeys, they got all kind of animals with black people face beside. And their children, they're grade schoolers, they're high schoolers, go into the museum and look at blacks with animals, and they're denoting us as animals. This is going on right now in China. These are the same ones that are going over to Nigeria and other places trying to buy land in Africa, but at the same time, they're comparing us to animals. But you love to get some China quick. We need to start boycotting these people. We need to start shutting these people down and letting them know why we're doing it. We need to get a little bit more aggressive and let people know that how you treat them in China, we're black in China. How you treat them in Russia, how you treat them in the 7 continents, how you treat them in Africa. If you treat them bad over there, you're going to suffer the consequences over here. We got to have some black people that's going to stand up. And right now they got Africa, the whole continent, handcuffed. Everybody's going to Africa to steal everything Africa got. You thought it was over? No, it ain't over. Colonization is not over. You're saying, well, black people just need to get them? No. You need to know more about your people. Colonization is going on right now in Africa. You know what it's called? It's called medical colonization, financial colonization, religious colonization. They're still putting these stupid books called Bibles with nothing but white Jesus all on them, and every apostle is on them, and they're giving it to some of these black people that are in Africa, and they're still promoting white supremacy. We have black people that really, really don't want to be black in Africa. And the reason why they don't want to be black in Africa is because a lot of them are all thirsty for money, and all they have to do is just give you just a few $100,000 and you'll sell your whole group out. We got a problem. We got black Chinese that don't want to be black Chinese. I saw a man just the other day. I was amazed, and I was kind of thrilled but amazed. He was an Indian. And bless God, he had me beat by a few shades. I mean, he was black. and he had straight hair. And he looked at me as though he was better. And I'm like, as my wife always say, really? Looked at me as though he was better, and she said, really? And I looked at him, and he acted like he didn't even want to talk to me. I'm saying to myself, come on, man. Come on. So they have been programmed to hate black. You got Afro-Caribbeans, you got Afro-Argentinians, you got Afro-Cuban, Afro-Dominican Republic. You got all these black folks that don't want to be black, and the reason why they don't want to be black is because they have been systematically programmed to think that black is bad. You see, when I say they don't want to be black, they like what we have, they just don't like the skin that we live in. They love the swag, but they don't want us to have it. They want us to disappear so they can be what they know that we are. Again, that's whitewashing, that's colonial rewrite. You are the most special group of people on the planet. There is nobody in the world like you. Nobody. And the world knows that. And the world hopes and prays that you never ever find that out. Because when you find that out, they're trying to get your lips. Just think about it. You're putting silicone in your lips to get thick lips. But you hate black women. You're putting silicone in your hips to get the black women curves. But you hate black women. You putting all this fake stuff on to be what a black woman is naturally. She is beautiful. Well, the women said black is beautiful. You got to go pay $100,000 to get some new fake hips, and if you don't get them right, then that stuff will burn up you and you'll be flat as a pancake. Why do black people are afraid of being black? You need to show them curves. I'm not saying show them all the way, but you need to be happy to be black. Be happy to be black. You don't have to get a suntan. All you got to do is just show up, and the world say, oh, here she is again. But they got you thinking that your lips are too big, your hips are too big, and you stop in traffic when you walk. I mean, what the problem is? Holla back. Can somebody clap back? How many of you ever seen one of them sisters walk down the street and she stopped traffic? I have. I know y'all trying to act like you never seen it, but if you're a man in the house, you know what I'm talking about. You mess around and be running all off the road. And she ain't got to have no makeup on. She ain't got to have nothing on. The sister just got that walk. And you got white women trying to get that walk. You don't know how special you are. Because if you knew how special you were, you wouldn't be trying to be nobody else but yourself. Look to your neighbor and say, be yourself. As I wrap this here up, I want to share this with you. Russia's President Vladimir Putin. My wife don't like it when I call him Pootie. Vladimir Putin. He said Africa is a cemetery for Africans. Listen to this. He said when Africans become rich, his bank account are in Switzerland. He travels to France for medical treatment. He invests in Germany. He buys from Dubai. He consumes China. He prays in Rome or Mecca. His children study in Europe. He travels to Canada, U.S., Europe for tourism. If he dies, he will be buried in his native country of Africa. Africa is just a cemetery for Africans. How could a cemetery develop? Putin asked. Africa has been labeled a cemetery by Vladimir Putin. And there are many Africans leaving Nigeria, leaving Ghana, leaving all over the place, running to those places because it's like you have $1 trillion that's underneath your feet, but because you have not developed the ingenuity to go get it, you running to other places to get what you already have. Africa is the richest continent on the planet, bar none. There's no other continent as rich as Africa. But Africa's problem is development. When Africa needs something, it goes to other countries. China's president saying about Africa, Xi Jinping, said that he's going to offer Africa $60 billion. Now, to the untrained mind and the uneducated, you say, wow, $60 billion, that's pretty good. But to those of us that are educated and understand what $60 billion is, when you're dealing with a continent that has roughly 54 to 55 countries. So you're going to get maybe 1 billion apiece. How's that going to help you? China is buying off Africa right now as I speak. They're calling it China's Africa because there are leaders over there that want money so bad until they're selling off their land. And as a result of that, you may go over there and see more Chinese than you see Africans, because Africans are leaving the continent, going other places. But I believe that God has another plan. I'm not going to write Africa off like that because I'm going in 2020. We're going, brother. Africa is the youngest population on the planet, from the ages of 16, 17, all the way up to 30. There's no other continent that has that young population. Africa is growing. And as soon as some of these old heads get out the way and let these young folks come in and do what they know they want to do, Africa will rise. So let us pray for Africa. And as I close, I want to leave you with this. I am black. Can everybody say, I am black? And I am proud. You see, when you know you're black and you're proud, that's what it means. But I'm going to read this to you. I am black, kill me, and call it collateral damage. Imprison me, and call it security measures. Exile my people from their native land, and call it ghettos and S-hole nations. Rob our homeland and take our resources and kill our leadership and call it democracy. What I want to leave you with this evening, you just heard the state of blacks worldwide. But that doesn't mean that it has to stay that way. What it means is that you have just gotten a flash report. You've just received a bulletin. You just received something on the reel. And now, you must be willing and able to do something to change it. And how do we change it? We change it by changing our own selves, changing our own minds. We change it by knowing what's going on all over the world. See, I want you to have a world perspective, not just a United States perspective. I want you to know what's going on in China, Asia. I want you to know what's going on in Antarctica. I want you to know what's going on in the 54, soon 55 nations of Africa. I want you to be able to call out the names of those nations. I want you to be able to know the leaders of those nations. Know what's going on in Germany. Know what's going on in Russia. Know what's going on in China. Know what's going on in Japan. Know what's going on in North and South Korea. You must have a world perspective in order to help black suffering worldwide. If you can believe it and receive it, stand to your feet and give God a hand praise in the house of God. We want you to be knowledgeable with what's going on with our people worldwide. Amen?